you've ever wondered where real honey is born, how the land chooses the beekeeper, and why the future of farming depends on doing things differently, stay with me until the end of the story, because what you are about to hear might change the way you see the countryside forever. The sun is just beginning to rise over the hills, that soft golden light touching the tops of the trees first, then slowly spilling into the valley. I stand there in silence, boots still damp with morning dew, listening, not to machines, not to traffic, but to life, the low hum of bees waking inside their wooden homes, the distant call of cattle shifting in the pasture, the gentle creak of a tractor cooling after yesterday's work. This is not just a place, this is a decision, a choice to farm with respect, with patience, with intelligence. People think beekeeping is about boxes and honey. They're wrong. Beekeeping is about listening to the land, about knowing that the wrong location can kill a colony, and the right one can make it thrive beyond imagination. When I chose this place for the apiary, I wasn't looking for convenience alone. I was looking for harmony, a place far from cities, far from stress, far from pollution, somewhere the bees could fly without crossing highways, without competing with concrete, without being poisoned by careless chemicals. Somewhere the flowers still ruled the calendar, not the clock. Walk with me for a moment. Feel the ground under your feet. This soil is alive. It feeds the wildflowers that stretch across the field like a living carpet thyme. Rosemary, clover, chestnut blossoms in the distance. This is what gives the honey its soul. This is why some honey is forgotten the moment you taste it, and other honey stays in your memory forever. If you want first-class honey, you must first choose first-class land. And that choice begins with respect. I still remember the first time I brought my hives here. The truck rolled slowly along the dirt track, careful not to shake the colonies too much. No paved road, no noise, just the sound of tires on gravel and my own heartbeat asking the same question over and over: is this the right place? Then I turned the hives gently toward the east, toward the rising sun, because bees, like hope, need light early. The morning warmth helps them start working sooner, strengthens the colony, protects them from damp cold. These are not romantic details. These are the small decisions that separate survival from collapse. Behind us, the northern wind tries to make its presence known. Cold and sharp, but it can't reach the hives. The natural slope of the land and the line of old trees form a living wall, a barrier that protects the colonies without a single nail or piece of plastic. This is what modern ecological farming really looks like, not going backward, but going deeper, using knowledge instead of force, using design instead of domination. If this story is speaking to you, don't leave yet. Stay with me. What comes next might be exactly what you needed to hear. Cattle down the slope begin to move as the light grows stronger. They know this rhythm as well as I do. They graze slowly, naturally, without stress, without overcrowding. Their presence here is not a conflict with the bees. It's a partnership. Their movement encourages new plant growth. Their manure feeds the soil feeds the flowers feed the bees pollinate more life into existence. This is not theory, this is a living system, balanced and powerful if we have the humility to respect it. Many people ask me why I don't place my hives closer to the village, closer to the road, closer to comfort. They think it would be easier, cheaper, faster, and yes, it would be easier for me. But it would be harder for the bees. And when you choose this path, you stop asking what is easiest for you and start asking what is best for the ecosystem you depend on. Roads bring dust, cars bring vibration, people bring fear, fear leads to complaints, complaints lead to regulations, conflicts, and sometimes the destruction of entire apiaries. So distance is not just a preference, it is protection, for them, and for us. I've seen what happens when beekeepers ignore this. Colonies weakened by constant disturbance, aggressive behavior caused by stress, poor honey yields because the surrounding land offers only monoculture crops instead of diverse nectar. The difference between a struggling apiary and a thriving one is often invisible to the eye, but devastating in the results. That's why I walk every new location before placing a single hive. I watch where the sun rises, I feel where the cold settles at night. I observe which plants dominate the landscape and which bloom in sequence across the seasons. Because great honey is not made in the extractor. It is made here, long before the first drop is ever harvested. There's a reason why the most respected honeys in the world come from remote, almost inhospitable places, mountains, walled valleys, areas where access is difficult. where the air is clean, where nature still speaks louder than machines. People sometimes think recognition comes from marketing. They're wrong. Recognition comes from purity, from flavor, from authenticity, from a product that carries the story of its origin in every spoonful. And that story always begins with the placement of the commoner. My tractor sits at the edge of the field. Modern, efficient, low emission. Not a symbol of domination over the land, but a tool to work with it. Technology and ecology are not enemies. When used correctly, modern machinery allows us to reduce soil compaction, optimize roots, minimize fuel consumption, and protect biodiversity. The future of farming is not abandoned innovation. The future is choosing smarter innovation, guided by ethics instead of greed. If you're still here listening, it tells me something about you. It tells me you care about more than quick results. It tells me you understand that real value takes time, observation, patience, and that's exactly the mindset that builds strong apiaries, resilient farms, and sustainable livelihoods. Don't go anywhere. The most important part of the story is still ahead. As the morning deepens, the first bees begin their work. They emerge slowly, testing the air with delicate wings, navigating toward the nearest blooms. I watch them closely because every flight tells a story. Each path they take reveals the quality of the nectar, the safety of their surroundings, and the balance of this little universe we call an apiary. There's no rush here. Nature doesn't hurry, and neither should we. I kneel near the hives, running my hand along the wooden frames. Smooth, warm, alive. These boxes are more than wooden nails. They're homes, they're fortresses, and their placement is critical. Facing the sun, protected from northern chills, far from roads yet close enough for careful management. Every decision I make around their orientation, the surrounding flora, and the topography ensures the bees thrive. It's about maximizing growth without forcing it. About giving freedom without losing control. Nearby, the cattle shift lazily, the soft jingle of their bells blending with the buzz of the bees. Each element interacts with the others. A misplaced hive could disrupt a natural rhythm. A poorly planned pasture could reduce flowering diversity. But here, the system hums perfectly, like a symphony tuned by time itself. This is modern ecological farming, not just caring for one species, but orchestrating the relationships between them. I think about the bees that don't survive in the wrong locations, those who face pesticide drift, traffic vibrations, or simply a lack of varied nectar. It pains me because every colony lost is a lesson and it could have been learned earlier. Every failed hive reminds me why site selection is sacred, and every successful hive, its peer reward. The sweet, complex honey tells the story of location, of sun, of wind, and of the quiet dedication to observing nature instead of forcing it. The tractor hums quietly in the background as I walk through rows of hives. It's more than a machine, it's a lifeline. Precision planting, careful soil management, even transport of equipment, all handled with the smallest footprint possible. Modern tools in ecological farming are not contradictory. They are complementary. And when you see the yield of a well-placed apiary, you realize that efficiency and sustainability are not separate goals, they are intertwined. If you want to truly understand how the perfect location transforms honey from ordinary to extraordinary, you need to keep watching. Stay with me, because what comes next will show the full picture of how we harmonize land, livestock, and bees for the highest quality results. If you want to learn more about how to create thriving, sustainable farms and exceptional honey, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. This knowledge is for those who care to do things right. The afternoon sun climbs higher, casting longer shadows across the meadow. Bees fly in arcs, darting from flower to flower, carrying pollen that will feed generations to come. I watch them, fascinated by their instinct and precision. Every movement is purposeful. Every path is dictated by a need that is both simple and profound: survival through cooperation. And this is exactly what a well-sited apiary teaches us. It teaches patience, observation, and respect. I move toward the edge of the property, where the terrain slopes into a small valley. Here, wildflowers bloom in hidden pockets: thyme, sage, clover, chestnut, offering nectar of unparalleled quality. This is the secret to premium honey diversity. When a hive has access to multiple sources of nectar across the seasons, the honey produced is richer, more complex, and carries the essence of the landscape itself. This is why I avoid convenience and proximity to urban areas. Here, the bees work in harmony with the land, not against it. I stop for a moment and look at the horizon. In the distance, a small village hums with life. Barely noticeable. It's far enough that the residents are not disturbed, as required by law, but close enough for logistical support if necessary. Balancing legal compliance, environmental safety, and ecological efficiency is no small task. But it is essential. A misplaced apiary can lead to complaints, fines, and worse, the decline of the bees. Respect for the law, like respect for the bees, ensures sustainability. A northern wind whispers faintly across the fields. Cold, sharp, relentless in some seasons. But here, I've designed a natural barrier, a line of dense trees and shrubs shielding the hives from the worst of it. Orientation, protection, sunlight, all small details that determine survival. The rising sun warms the hives early, giving the bees the head start they need. These are choices that can't be improvised. They must be studied, observed, and perfected over years. Nearby, the cattle graze lazily. Their movement helps spread seeds, enrich the soil, and maintain plant diversity. Their presence is not accidental. It is part of a larger, integrated approach to farming. Modern ecological livestock management is not about confinement or rapid production. It is about understanding rhythms, maximizing natural growth, and allowing each species to contribute to the ecosystem. Here, the bees, the cattle, and the plants form an interdependent system that is more productive and sustainable than any monoculture could ever be. I pause beside the tractor, parked under the shade of a solitary tree. Technology carefully applied enhances sustainability. Quiet, guided planting, low-emission engines, efficient fuel use all help reduce human impact while increasing precision. A modern farm does not reject machines. It uses them intelligently, ethically, and in ways that strengthen rather than weaken the environment. If you're following this journey, you can already feel the difference between a randomly placed apiary and one thoughtfully designed. Every detail matters: location, orientation, flora, weather, wind, legal distance, human access. All of it comes together to create honey that is not just sweet, but meaningful. And this is just the beginning of the story. If you want to master the secrets of sustainable farming and learn how to position your colony for maximum success, make sure to subscribe and click the like button. The next part will reveal insights that few beekeepers ever share. As evening approaches, the air changes. The buzz softens, the light turns amber, and the entire landscape seems to exhale. This is when I do my most important thinking. Not with notebooks or screens, but with observation. The bees returning to their hives tell me everything. The weight of their flight shows how heavy their nectar loads are. The calmness at the entrance shows the colony's health. The order in their movement shows whether the environment is supporting them or slowly working against them. You see, choosing the right location for a colony is not a what-on decision. It is a living commitment. The land changes. The seasons shift, flowering cycles move with rainfall and temperature. A true beekeeper does not simply place hives and walk away. A true beekeeper listens, adapts, and evolves alongside the ecosystem. This is what separates industrial exploitation from ecological mastery. I remember an older mentor once telling me, "If your bees are stressed, your land is screaming." At the time, I didn't fully understand. Today, those words guide every step I take. When a hive becomes defensive, I don't blame the bees, I question the surroundings. Is there enough forage? Are nearby crops being sprayed? Has human disturbance increased? Are they exposed to wind, to shade, to humidity? Every problem has a cause, and most causes begin with poor placement. That's why I always insist on distance from roads and paths, not only for legal reasons, but for the well-being of everyone involved. A calm apiary is safer for neighbors, safer for livestock, safer for visitors, and far healthier for the colonies. Too close to traffic and the constant vibration agitates them. Too close to people, and fear replaces understanding. But placed correctly, far enough to respect both nature and community, the apiary becomes a quiet ally instead of a perceived threat. Some of the best honey I have ever produced came from places most people would never consider convenient. Remote hillsides, rugged terrain, long walks carrying equipment, cold mornings, hot afternoons. But those places offered something far more valuable than comfort: purity. The bees had access to untouched flora. The air was clean, the water uncontaminated, and the result was honey so rich, so complex that buyers didn't just taste it, they felt it. That is how reputation is built in beekeeping, not through advertising, but through authenticity. And here's the truth most people don't like to hear: you cannot fake quality. You cannot shortcut good placement. You cannot force bees to produce excellence in a poor environment. You either build the conditions for success, or you accept mediocrity. That choice defines every beekeeper's path. If this message resonates with you, if you're starting to see the deeper meaning behind where and how we place our hives, stay with me, because we're about to dive even deeper into the mindset that transforms ordinary farms into living, breathing ecosystems. Night begins to settle gently over the land. One by one, the bees return home. Their day complete, the entrance of each hive becomes a place of quiet order, not chaos. This calm tells me everything I need to know. A well-placed apiary does not just produce honey, it produces stability, and stability is the true foundation of sustainable agriculture. I sit on an old wood post and let the silence speak. In the distance, an owl calls. The cattle lie down, chewing slowly. At peace, the tractor stands still. It's work done for today. This moment, this balance is not accidental. It is the result of hundreds of conscious decisions. Where to place the hives, how far from the road, how far from the village, how much sunlight, how much shelter, how much floral diversity. These details don't just improve production, they define the soul of the project. People often underestimate the importance of legal distances. They see them as obstacles, as bureaucracy. I see them as protection. Keeping hives away from roads, paths, and urban areas isn't only about avoiding fines. It's about building long-term trust between beekeepers and society. When we respect these boundaries, we reduce conflicts, we prevent accidents, we protect our bees from unnecessary stress, and in doing so, we protect the future of beekeeping itself. Because the future is fragile. We live in a time when industrial shortcuts threaten everything. Monocultures replacing biodiversity, chemical dependence weakening pollinators, speed replacing wisdom. But here, in this small corner of the world, we choose a different path. We choose to modernize without destroying, to use technology without abusing, to produce without exploiting. This is not nostalgia. This is innovation guided by ethics. I think about the young beekeepers who will one day stand where I stand now. What will they inherit? A broken landscape? Or a living system they continue to build upon? The answer depends on the choices we make today, and whether we teach that the placement of a colmoner is not just technical, but philosophical, a declaration of values, a commitment to coexistence. The bees don't ask for much, just clean air, diverse flowers, morning sun, protection from harsh winds, distance from chaos. Give them that and they will reward you beyond measure, not only with honey, but with life itself. Pollination, regeneration, abundance. They are not just producers, they are guardians of the ecosystem. And maybe if you're still listening, you're starting to feel it too. That pull toward a different way of working. A way that feels slower, deeper, more meaningful. A way that doesn't just aim for profit, but for legacy. Don't go yet, because the final part of this story carries the most powerful truth of all. The first light of dawn returns quietly, as it always does, and with it comes the confirmation that everything is still in balance. The hives awaken gently, no frantic movement, no defensive chaos, just steady, purposeful life. This is the reward of doing things right when nobody is watching, of choosing the correct location when shortcuts were tempting, and trusting ecological principles even when others laughed and said it would never be productive enough. I walk slowly between the rows of hives, listening again, not with my ears alone, but with experience. Each colony has its own tone, its own rhythm, its own character, and yet all of them are shaped by the same environment. This is why placement matters more than any fancy equipment, more than any marketing strategy, more than any feeding trick. A well-placed colmoner reduces disease pressure, improves productivity, stabilizes temperament, and strengthens resilience against climate extremes. It is the invisible foundation behind every successful apiary. Some visitors who come here for the first time expect dramatic explanations. They want secrets, formulas, shortcuts. And I tell them the truth: there are no secrets. Only attention. Attention to where the sun rises. Attention to where moisture settles after rain. Attention to which plants bloom first in spring and which carry the bees through the harshness of late summer. Attention to how far the nearest road is, how often people pass, how the wind behaves at different times of the year. This is not guesswork, this is science married to intuition, tradition strengthened by observation. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't only benefit bees, It benefits everything. The cattle are healthier because the pastures are managed for diversity instead of speed. The soil is richer because machinery is used strategically, not aggressively. The water remains clean because chemicals are minimized. And the people who consume the honey, they receive something pure, something honest, something that carries the fingerprint of a living landscape instead of the residue of industrial shortcuts. I sometimes hold a jar of this honey up to the light and watch how it glows. Golden, deep, alive, and I think about how that color began not in the hive, but in the choice of this place. In the decision to stay far from urban chaos, in the respect for legal distances, in the patience to wait for the right land instead of forcing the wrong one. Every spoonful becomes proof that ecological, modern farming is not only possible, it is superior. If you've stayed with me this long, then you already understand something many never will, that true quality is built before production ever begins. That sustainability is not a trend, but a discipline, that the placement of a commoner is not just technical, but emotional, ethical, and deeply human. And maybe now, when you look at a landscape, you'll see more than fields and hills. Maybe you'll start asking yourself where the sun rises, where the wind travels, where life could flourish if given the chance. Because once you begin to see the world through the eyes of a beekeeper, through the lens of ecological farming, you never go back. This path is not the easiest. It demands observation. It demands humility. It demands commitment. But it offers something no industrial shortcut ever can: meaning, connection, legacy. And that is where real agriculture begins. I often meet people who say they want to start beekeeping, but what they really want is quick honey, fast results, easy income. And I understand the temptation. But I also know the disappointment that follows when the foundations are weak. Because beekeeping, when done with conscience, begins long before the first hive is ever purchased. It begins with walking the land, with sitting in silence, with watching where frost lingers in the morning and where warmth arrives first, with learning the legal responsibilities, the distances, the respect owed to neighbors, animals, and nature itself. This is why I always return to the same truth: the placement of the commoner is not just a technical decision. It is a moral one. When you choose a location far from roads, you are choosing the safety of others. When you choose a location far from urban areas, you are choosing peace for your bees and your community. When you choose land rich in melliferous flora, you are choosing excellence over mediocrity. And when you orient your hives toward the rising sun and protect them from the cold northern winds, you are choosing life over loss. I have seen beekeepers transform their results simply by moving their hives a few hundred meters, from constant losses to stable colonies, from aggressive behavior to co-productivity, from average honey to exceptional harvests. The bees didn't change. The equipment didn't change. The only thing that changed was the understanding of place. That is how powerful this principle truly is. Sometimes I bring students here. I don't start by talking about frames or queens or treatments. I let them stand in the middle of the apiary. I let them feel the absence of noise. I let them hear the calm hum instead of frantic buzzing. I let them smell the flowers, the soil, the air. And then I ask them one simple question: would you want to live here? Because if the answer is yes, the bees probably do. This is the future I believe in. A future where beekeeping is not extraction, but collaboration, where tractors are tools of precision, not destruction, where livestock are partners in ecosystem management, not just production units, where farmers are guardians of landscapes, not just operators of land. It's a future that is modern, intelligent, technologically supported, but deeply rooted in respect. And maybe that's why this story matters. Because it's not just about where to place a commoner. It's about how to place ourselves within nature. Not above it, not against it, but within it, observing, learning, adapting, growing. If you've listened this far, then you're already part of this vision. You're already someone who cares about doing things properly, about building something that lasts, about creating quality instead of chasing quantity. And that mindset, more than any technique, is what defines the beekeepers, farmers, and land stewards of the future. The bees will keep flying, the sun will keep rising, the seasons will keep turning. The only question that remains is how we choose to participate in that cycle. You're right, thank you for the correction. From here on, I'll make the blocks longer and closer to the 4,000 character target to better fit your format. Here is the next extended block of narration. There's a moment, usually when the day is quiet and the work is done, When I walk slowly to the highest point of the land, from there I can see everything: the hives aligned like small guardians of life, the cattle resting calmly, the fields breathing after the heat, the tractor parked like a loyal companion waiting for the next task. And in that moment I always feel the same thing: responsibility, because this landscape is not mine to exploit. It is mine to protect, to understand, and to pass on in better condition than I found it. That is what ecological, modern farming truly means. It is not a label. It is not marketing. It is not a trend. It is a daily discipline. A way of thinking. A way of deciding. When I choose where to place a commoner, I am shaping everything that will come after: the health of the colonies, the quality of the honey, the safety of nearby people, the relationship with the environment, the reputation of my work. One wrong decision can echo for years. One correct decision can create stability for decades. People rarely talk about how emotional this work really is. They talk about production, about yields, about numbers, but nobody tells you how it feels to lose colonies because you misread the land. Nobody tells you how heavy that silence becomes when a hive that once vibrated with life suddenly feels empty. And nobody tells you how powerful the opposite feeling is when you open a hive months after placing it in the right location, and you find strong brood, calm bees, heavy frames, and the unmistakable scent of a thriving superorganism. That is not just success, that is redemption. I often think about how many beginners fail, not because they lack passion, but because they are never taught the importance of placement. They buy bees, they buy equipment, they watch videos, but they skip the most critical step: learning the land. They place hives too close to houses, too close to roads, in damp valleys where cold air settles, in windy quarters where colonies struggle constantly. And then they blame the bees, or the queen, or the season, when in reality, the land was speaking from the beginning, and they didn't know how to listen. This is why education matters. Real education, not shortcuts. Not flashy tricks, but deep understanding. Understanding that legal distances are not obstacles, but safeguards; that remote locations are not inconveniences, but opportunities for excellence. That wild, inhospitable landscapes often produce the most respected honeys in the world. That orienting hives toward the sunrise is not tradition, but biology. That protecting colonies from northern winds is not superstition, but survival strategy. If you are still here, still listening, still walking through this story with me, then you are not here by accident. You are here because something inside you recognizes the truth of this path. You understand that good farming is not about dominating nature, but about cooperating with it. You feel that agriculture can be modern without being destructive, that technology can coexist with ethics, that production can exist alongside respect. Don't leave yet, because in the next part, I'm going to share the most important realization of all, the one that changed everything about how I work with bees, land, and life itself. There came a time when I almost gave up. Not because I didn't love the bees, not because I didn't believe in ecological farming, but because I was exhausted from trying to convince others that this path was worth it. People told me I was wasting time by walking the land instead of rushing to install hives. They said I was losing money by choosing remote locations instead of convenient ones. They laughed when I spoke about orientation to the rising sun, about wind protection, about legal distances, about the invisible influence of silence and calm on a colony's health. And for a moment I doubted myself. Then, one season changed everything. A year of extreme weather, late frosts, unpredictable rain, heat waves that destroyed flowering in many regions. Beekeepers around me suffered heavy losses. Colonies collapsed, honey yields dropped dramatically. Some gave up entirely, but here, in this carefully chosen place, something different happened. The colonies struggled, yes, nature always tests us. But they endured, they adapted. They survived where others did not. And in that survival I found my answer. Because this is the real power of correct placement. It's not just about productivity in good years. It's about resilience in bad ones. A well-located colmoner acts like a shield against chaos. Diverse flora means that if one bloom fails, another compensates. Shelter from harsh winds reduces stress during storms. Proper sun exposure strengthens the colony's daily rhythm. Distance from pollution and disturbance preserves immune systems that would otherwise collapse under pressure. This is what most people never see when they choose convenience over wisdom. They see the short-term gains. They don't see the long-term stability. But true sustainability is not tested in easy seasons. It is tested when everything goes wrong. And when everything went wrong around us, the bees here kept flying. I remember standing in the middle of the apiary after that difficult season, listening to the familiar hum, and realizing that this sound was more than noise. It was proof. Proof that ecological, intelligent placement works. Proof that modern farming guided by ethics is not weaker, but stronger. Proof that respecting nature does not make you vulnerable, it makes you resilient. From that moment on, I stopped trying to convince people with words. I let the results speak. I let the honey speak. I let the calm colony speak. I let the returning customers speak. Because when someone tastes honey born from untouched flora, from remote land, from careful orientation, from respectful distances, they don't ask for marketing. They ask for more. This is how reputation is built in true agriculture. Slowly, honestly, through consistency, through quality, through decisions that nobody sees, but everyone eventually tastes. And maybe that's why this message matters so deeply. Because the placement of a colmoner is not just a technical skill, it is a philosophy. It says, I choose patience over speed. I choose quality over convenience. I choose resilience over shortcuts. I choose harmony over exploitation. Every hive you place is a reflection of your values. Every location you choose tells the world what kind of beekeeper you are, what kind of farmer you are, what kind of guardian of the land you are. Stay with this story, because the closer we get to the end, the clearer the real lesson becomes, and it's bigger than bees. Over time, I began to understand something deeper. The land doesn't just respond to technique, it responds to intention. When you approach a place with respect, with patience, with the willingness to learn instead of dominate, the entire system seems to cooperate with you. The bees become calmer, the cattle become healthier, the soil becomes richer, the work becomes heavier. Yes, but also more meaningful. And meaning, in the end, is what sustains you when profit alone never will. There are mornings when I arrive at the apiary before sunrise. The world is still dark, almost holding its breath. I stand quietly between the hives, and for a few seconds everything feels suspended. Then the first light appears on the horizon, slowly, softly, and as the sun touches the front of the hives, something magical happens. Life begins. A few bees emerge, then more. Then a gentle wave of movement spreads across the apiary. This is why orientation matters. This is why we face the hives toward the east. Not out of tradition, not out of superstition, but because biology itself responds to light, warmth, rhythm, timing. People who place their hives without considering this wonder why their colonies start late, why productivity drops, why humidity builds inside, why diseases appear more easily. But when you understand that every small detail affects the whole, you begin to design instead of improvising. You begin to think like an ecosystem, not like an operator. I often say that tractors, bees, and livestock all teach the same lesson in different languages. A tractor teaches efficiency and responsibility. Every pass over the soil leaves an impact, so you must choose your routes wisely. Livestock teaches balance over graze and you destroy, rotate and you regenerate. Bees teach humility, you can guide them, but you can never fully control them. Together, they form a system that rewards those who think long-term and punishes those who chase quick gains. And that's the uncomfortable truth many don't want to face. Ecological, modern farming demands more intelligence. Not less, more observation, more planning, more patience. It's easier to spray chemicals than to build biodiversity. It's easier to place hives anywhere than to search for the right location. It's easier to push production than to cultivate resilience. But the easy path is always the fragile one. The path of respect is harder, but it endures. Sometimes visitors stand here and say, "You're lucky to have such a place." And I always answer the same way: this isn't luck. This is the result of hundreds of choices. Of saying no to convenience. Of walking away from land that didn't meet the standards. Of studying the legal requirements instead of ignoring them. Of waiting for the right conditions instead of forcing the wrong ones. This place exists not because it was easy to find, but because it was difficult to compromise on. And that is the real lesson behind colmoner placement. You don't just choose a spot on a map. You choose a standard for your work. You choose how much you care. You choose whether you are building something temporary or something that will outlive you. The bees don't know your business plan. They don't care about your deadlines. They don't respond to pressure. They respond to environment, to balance, to respect. And when you finally understand that, truly understand it, everything changes. Your approach changes, your expectations change, your results change, and even the way you see the land changes forever. Because at that point, you are no longer just placing hives. You are shaping a living system. You are designing harmony. You are becoming part of the landscape, instead of standing above it. And that is when beekeeping stops being an activity and becomes a way of life. There is a quiet truth that only time in the field can teach you. The land remembers everything. Every mistake, every shortcut, every act of care. And sooner or later, it returns that memory to you in the form of results. Weak colonies where you ignored the wind. Poor harvests where you ignored the flora. Conflict where you ignored legal distances. But also abundance where you were patient. Calm where you were respectful. Excellence where you were disciplined. This is the invisible contract every beekeeper signs with the landscape, whether they realize it or not. I've walked away from places that look perfect on the surface. Beautiful views, easy access, close to home, but when I stayed long enough, I noticed the cold air pooling at dusk, the constant breeze cutting across the slope, the lack of continuous flowering after early spring, the proximity to a dirt road where trucks pass daily. And I understood something important: a good location is not chosen with excitement, but with honesty. You must be willing to disappoint yourself today in order to succeed tomorrow. That discipline is rare, but it's what separates those who struggle year after year from those who build something solid. Because placing a colmoner is not an impulsive act. It is a long-term commitment. You are not just putting boxes on the ground. You are establishing a living operation that must function in heat, in cold, in drought, in rain, in silence and isolation. And if the location cannot support life in its worst moments, it doesn't deserve your bees in its best months. Sometimes I imagine the future. A child tasting real honey for the first time and realizing it doesn't taste like sugar, but like flowers, like earth, like summer air. A young farmer deciding to change their practices after seeing that ecological systems can outperform industrial ones. A community learning that bees are not a threat, but a blessing because someone respected the distances, the laws, the balance. These moments may seem small, but they are how revolutions truly begin. Quietly, genuinely, one decision at a time. The world doesn't need more honey produced at any cost. It needs better honey produced with conscience. It doesn't need more farms that exhaust the land. It needs farms that regenerate it. It doesn't need more machines used without thought. It needs smarter use of technology guided by ethics. This is why I speak about tractors, bees, and livestock as one story, not three separate topics, because they are not separate in real life. They are threads of the same system. When the colmoner is well placed, pollination improves. When pollination improves, pasture quality improves. When pasture improves, livestock health improves. When livestock is managed responsibly, soil improves. And when soil improves, floral diversity explodes, feeding the bees once again. This is not poetry. This is practical ecology. This is productivity built on intelligence. And the beauty of it is this: once you see the system, you can never unsee it. You begin to evaluate every decision differently. Not by asking, will this give me faster results? But by asking, will this strengthen the system? That single shift in thinking changes everything. Your planning, your investments, your patience, your outcomes. I know this path is not for everyone. It demands too much awareness, too much humility, too much long-term thinking. But for those who feel that pull toward meaningful work, toward deep connection with land and life, it becomes impossible to ignore. Because once you've heard the hum of a truly healthy apiary, once you've tasted honey born from untouched flora, once you've watched an ecosystem thrive under thoughtful management, you realize you weren't ever meant to farm any other way. The sun is already high now, and the apiary is fully alive. Bees move with confidence, not chaos. Cattle graze without tension. The land breathes in rhythm. And standing here, in the middle of this living system, I understand something very clearly. This balance did not happen by accident. It was designed, chosen, respected. Every decision led here. Every step mattered. Every compromise refused shaped this result. The location of the colmoner was never just about productivity. It was about values, about choosing distance instead of conflict, silence instead of stress, diversity instead of monoculture, knowledge instead of improvisation, respect instead of exploitation. This is what modern ecological beekeeping truly looks like. Not romantic, Not simplistic, but intelligent, disciplined, and deeply connected to the land. If you've stayed until this moment, then you already understand great honey is born long before the hive is opened. It is born in the choice of place, in the orientation toward the rising sun, in the shelter from cold winds, in the respect for legal distances, in the search for wild, rich, and touched flora, in the patience to wait for the right land instead of forcing the wrong one. And this story does not end here. It cannot end here, because beekeeping is not a single topic. It is a world, a craft, a responsibility, a way of seeing life. So if this journey resonated with you, if something inside you connected with this way of work, if you want to go deeper into real beekeeping, real understanding, real practice, then stay with me. Continue to the next video. The next chapter will take you deeper into the world of apiculture, where every detail matters, and every lesson can transform the way you work with bees forever. This is not content for those who want shortcuts. This is for those who want mastery. And if that's you, I'll see you in the next video. Before you go, take one last look at this landscape in your mind. The hives aligned with intention. The sun rising exactly where it should. The wind blocked by natural barriers. The flowers feeding the bees. The bees sustaining everything else. This is not just beekeeping. This is a way of understanding the world. Everything you've heard in this story has a purpose. To show you that placement is not technical theory. It is the foundation of success. It is the difference between struggling every year and building something that lasts. If this perspective changed the way you see apiculture, then your journey is only beginning. Because there is much more to learn, much more to understand, much more to master. In the next video, we will go deeper into beekeeping itself. Practical knowledge, real experience, lessons that can transform your results. So don't stop here. Don't break the rhythm. Don't lose the connection. Continue to the next video. Keep learning. Keep growing. Keep walking this path. Because real beekeepers are not made by watching one story. They are made by committing to the journey. And remember, every step you take in beekeeping echoes far beyond the hive. The choices you make, where to place your colony, how to protect it from wind, how to respect your neighbors, how to observe the land, these decisions shape not only your honey, but the health of the entire ecosystem. This is why understanding the foundations matters more than rushing into production. If you have ever dreamed of living closer to nature, if you have ever imagined producing your own honey, if you feel that modern life is pulling you too far away from what really matters, then stay with me, because this talk may change the way you see the land forever. Today I am not only speaking about beekeeping. I am speaking about a way of life. A modern, sustainable, and deeply human path. Behind me, you see this apiary. But this is not just a workplace. It is a living ecosystem. A balance between humans, insects, plants, soil, sun, rain, and time. I stand here not only as a beekeeper, but also as someone who works the land, who understands tractors, who lives alongside livestock, and who believes that the future of agriculture must be ecological, intelligent, and respectful. If you are watching this and thinking, maybe I could do this, to hold on to that thought, because every real beekeeper started exactly there. Let's begin with something many beginners underestimate: the location of the apiary. Beekeeping does not start when you buy bees. It starts when you observe the land. A good apiary needs morning sunlight, protection from strong winds, access to clean water, and a natural diversity of flowering plants. Your bees must live in harmony with their environment, not in conflict with it. Modern ecological beekeeping is not about forcing productivity. It is about creating the right conditions so the colony can develop naturally, strongly, and healthily. When the environment is right, the bees respond with strength, balance, and resilience. And this is where real beekeeping begins. Another important decision is the type of hive you choose. Langstroth, dad ant, lay ends, different systems, different philosophies. But no matter the model, the principle should always be the same: respect the natural behavior of the colony. We are not factory managers. We are not controlling machines. We are working with living beings that have their own intelligence, organization, and rhythm. A modern beekeeper uses technology and tools, yes, but never forgets that the bees come first. Not all bees are the same either. There are breeds that are calmer, breeds that are more resistant, breeds that are better adapted to cold climates, and others that tolerate heat and drought much better. Choosing the right bees is not about maximizing honey at all costs. It is about selecting colonies that belong to your environment, that support biodiversity, and that strengthen your local ecosystem. This is where beekeeping becomes something bigger than production. It becomes responsibility. If you are still listening, it means something inside you already understands this connection, even if you can't fully explain it yet. And that is exactly how this journey begins. Now, let's talk about something that is both practical and symbolic: the beekeeper's clothing. The protective suit, gloves, and veil are not just safety measures, they are a statement of respect for the bees and for yourself. When you wear them, you create a boundary of trust. You are careful not to harm them, and they can work without fear. Modern beekeepers often complement traditional suits with lighter, breathable materials and even small cameras or sensors to monitor the hives. Technology should always serve life, not dominate it. To begin, you will need basic tools: a smoker to calm the bees, a hive tool for inspection, and a brush to gently move bees without causing harm. For the beginner, simplicity is key. Overloading with gadgets can distract from the most important lesson: understanding the colony. Everything you do should be deliberate and calm. Every gesture matters. The bees feel your presence and respond accordingly. One of the most exciting parts of beekeeping is harvesting honey. But modern ecological practices teach us patience. You only take what the bees can spare. If you plan to scale, even slightly, you will need proper facilities for extraction and bottling. This doesn't have to be industrial. A clean, organized workspace is enough. Hygiene, order, and respect for the product are the pillars of professional work. And remember, your honey tells a story: the flowers your bees visited, the seasons they endured, the care you provided. Treat it as something sacred, not merely as a commodity. Many beginners overlook this. Beekeeping is regulated for good reasons. Understanding local laws about hive registration, honey labeling, and disease control protects both you and your bees. Sustainable beekeeping is not just an ecological choice. It is a legal and ethical responsibility. When you respect the rules, you ensure the health of your colonies, your neighbors, and the integrity of your craft. Every element of beekeeping, from clothing to hive choice, equipment, extraction, and legislation, forms a web of responsibility. Modern ecological beekeeping is about observation first, action second. It's about working with nature, not against it. It's about combining tradition with modern knowledge and care with innovation. Every beekeeper starts as a beginner, but every action they take shapes the future of the bees and the land. Look at these hives. Every one of them contains thousands of lives, thousands of stories, and thousands of lessons. And the more you observe, the more you understand that beekeeping is a mirror. It reflects patience, persistence, humility, and respect. If you feel inspired, remember this is just the beginning. Stay with me, because in upcoming sections we will explore even more details about equipment, hive management, and seasonal care. By the end of this journey, you will not only know the basics, you will feel what it means to be part of a living ecosystem. Now let's continue with more practical aspects of beekeeping. The clothing you wear is your first tool. A well-fitted suit, gloves, and veil not only protect you, but also show respect to your bees. When you move calmly and deliberately, the colony senses your presence and reacts with harmony. Modern beekeepers often use lightweight materials, ventilation systems, and even sensors to monitor hive health. The key is balance. Technology assists, but never replaces observation. Next is the essential equipment every beginner must have: smoker to gently calm the bees during inspections, hot tool for lifting frames and managing the hive, bee brush to move bees without harm, containers for honey collection. Simplicity is crucial. Too many tools can distract from understanding your colony's behavior. Every action should be deliberate. Every gesture matters. When it comes to honey extraction, patience is your ally. Take only what the bees can spare. Respect their work and their needs. If you set up a small extraction area, ensure it is clean and organized. Proper hygiene and order reflect professionalism and care. Remember, each jar of honey tells a story: the flowers visited, the seasons endured, and the attention given by the beekeeper. Treat it as a living product, not a commodity. Understanding legislation is equally important. Register your hives, follow labeling rules, and comply with disease control regulations. This protects your bees, your neighbors, and your business. Ecological beekeeping is about responsibility: ethical, legal, and environmental. Respecting the law is part of respecting life itself. Now, let's discuss the modern philosophy of ecological beekeeping. Observation first, action second. Work with nature, not against it. Blend traditional knowledge with modern innovation. Every decision affects the colony, the land, and your future as a beekeeper. Every beginner will face challenges, but every careful choice strengthens the ecosystem and your connection to it. Look at these hives. Each one contains thousands of lives, intricate patterns, and lessons about patience, humility, and persistence. The more you watch, the more you realize that beekeeping mirrors life itself. Patience, respect, and observation guide every action. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you are ready to start this journey. This is only the beginning. Stay with me as we explore deeper into hive management, seasonal care, and advanced equipment in upcoming sections. By the end of this hour, you will not only know the basics, you will feel what it truly means to be part of a living ecosystem. Managing your hives requires consistency, attention, and respect. Each hive is unique. Some colonies are strong and productive. Others are delicate and cautious. Learning to read the signs, the movement of bees, the shape of the comb, the presence of brood is the heart of successful beekeeping. Modern beekeepers balance tradition with innovation. They use record typing, seasonal calendars, and even simple digital monitoring to track hive health and growth. But no tool replaces observation and intuition. Seasonal planning is crucial. Spring is a time of preparation. Inspect hives carefully, ensure the queen is healthy, and provide supplemental feeding if necessary. Summer is the season of abundance. Flowers bloom, colonies expand, and honey stores grow. Autumn is reflection and conservation. Prepare hives for winter, protect them from pests, and ensure enough food remains. Winter is quiet observation, minimal disturbance. Only essential checks, the colony rests, storing energy for the next cycle. Following the rhythm of the seasons connects you to the natural flow of life. It teaches patience, humility, and a deeper understanding of nature. Every beekeeper, beginner or experienced, must also consider the long-term vision. Plan your apiary layout carefully. Consider accessibility for inspections and honey collection, protection from weather, and the diversity of local flora. This is not only practical, it is ecological. The health of the land and the colony are intertwined. Your role is to guide and protect, not dominate. You become a guardian, a teacher, and a learner at the same time. Every hive tells a story. Every frame, every comb, every buzzing colony teaches a lesson. Respect the bees, understand their language, and your journey as a beekeeper will flourish. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like to join this journey of modern, sustainable beekeeping. Stay tuned for future sessions where we will explore detailed equipment reviews, seasonal hive management techniques, specific bee breeds and their unique characteristics, advanced extraction methods, legal updates, and industry insights. By the end of this series, you will not just know how to start. You will feel what it truly means to be part of a living ecosystem. And you will be ready to take your first steps with confidence and care. There is something deeply transformative that happens when you spend enough time among the hives. At first, you hear only noise. Then, slowly, you begin to hear meaning. You recognize calm, tension, strength, weakness. You learn when a colony is thriving and when it needs help. This connection cannot be learned from books alone. It is built with time, presence, and respect. Many people arrive to beekeeping searching for honey. But those who stay because they discover something deeper: purpose. Working with bees changes the way you look at agriculture, at technology, and even at progress. A modern beekeeper does not reject innovation. Instead, they use it wisely. Solar-powered fences, moisture sensors, temperature monitoring, lightweight tools, efficient extractors. These are not enemies of tradition. They are allies when used with intelligence and ethics. Beekeeping fits naturally within a modern ecological farm. Bees improve pollination for crops. Healthy landscapes improve honey quality. Responsible grazing improves floral diversity. Smart use of machinery protects the soil. Everything becomes connected. Apiculture, tractors, livestock, soil, water, biodiversity. This is not romanticism. This is functional sustainability. If you are listening carefully, you may start to realize that this path is not about escaping modern life. It is about redefining it. It is about building a future where productivity and respect for life can exist together. Many beginners ask, how many hives should I start with? The honest answer is fewer than you think. Start small, learn deeply, grow slowly. A strong foundation is always better than fast expansion without understanding. Every inspection is a dialogue. You open the hive. You observe. You interpret. You decide. This rhythm develops discipline, patience, and responsibility. These qualities do not stay in the apiary. They follow you into every aspect of your life. And if at this point you feel that this message resonates with you, that this way of thinking connects with something personal, then I invite you clearly and honestly subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Not for numbers, but because this space is being built for people who truly care about doing things the right way. This journey does not end with one talk. It grows with every season, every question, every experience shared. In future sessions, we will go deeper. We will talk specifically about different hive models and when to use each. We will explore detailed protective clothing and professional-grade equipment. We will analyze real extraction rooms and how to design them properly. We will study bee behavior, disease prevention, queen management, and seasonal strategies. We will even discuss the real economics side of beekeeping, without myths and without illusions. But everything begins here, with respect, with observation, with intention. Because beekeeping is not something you do. It is something you become. There is also a truth that many videos never show you: beekeeping is beautiful, but it is not always easy. You will lose colonies. You will doubt your decisions. You will face weather that you cannot control, flowering seasons that fail, and moments where you feel you have done everything right and still things go wrong. And yet this is exactly where the real beekeeper is born. Because in those moments you learn responsibility. You learn humility. You learn that nature is not something to dominate, but something to understand. This is why ecological beekeeping is not a trend. It is a mindset. It forces you to ask better questions. How can I support the bees instead of exploiting them? How can I improve the environment instead of exhausting it? How can I produce with dignity instead of pressure? Modern tools help, yes. Data helps. Mechanization helps. But ethics must always guide the hand that uses them. When you manage hives with this philosophy, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Your colonies become more resilient. Your honey gains character. Your work gains meaning. People who consume your honey will feel it. Not because of marketing, but because authenticity always leaves a trace. And this is why this channel exists. Not to create viral content, but to build knowledge, to build respect, to build a community of people who want to work with nature, not against it. If you are still here listening, you are already part of that community. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you believe that agriculture, apiculture, and rural life deserve a future that is intelligent, ethical, and sustainable. Because the future of beekeeping will not be built by those who seek shortcuts. It will be built by those who are willing to observe, learn, fail, improve, and persist. And in the next sessions we will continue this path together. When you walk into an apiary with the right mindset, you stop being a visitor and start becoming a participant in something much larger than yourself. You begin to notice the small details, the rhythm of the flight, the subtle changes in sound, the way the bees respond to temperature, light, and even your own mood. This awareness transforms the way you approach every aspect of rural work. You start thinking differently about how you use machinery. You become more careful with how the soil is treated. You pay closer attention to water sources, to flowering cycles, to the impact of chemicals far beyond your own land. A modern ecological beekeeper understands that every decision creates consequences. Using fewer chemicals means healthier bees. Supporting local flora means stronger colonies. Choosing sustainable practices means long-term productivity instead of short-term gains. This way of working does not make you slower. It makes you wiser. Beekeeping teaches you to value time. Not the rush time of deadlines and pressure, but natural time. The time it takes for a colony to grow. The time it takes for nectar to transform into honey. The time it takes for experience to become true knowledge. Many people search for quick results. Few are willing to build something that lasts. And yet, everything truly valuable in agriculture is built slowly. If you are still listening, it means you understand that deep down. That is why this space exists. To offer clarity in a world full of shortcuts. To offer honest guidance instead of empty promises. To show the real path, demanding but deeply rewarding. Because beekeeping done correctly does not only produce honey. It produces balance. It produces awareness. It produces a different kind of future. And that future begins with people like you who choose to stay, to learn, and to care. There is a moment every beekeeper remembers. The first time you open a hive and feel no fear, only calm. The first time you recognize the queen without searching. The first time you taste honey from your own colonies and realize you did not simply harvest a product, you earned a relationship. These moments are not bought. They are built. Built through patience. Built through mistakes. Built through mornings when you wake early to check the weather, and evenings when you replay every inspection in your mind, wondering how to improve. This is why beekeeping cannot be separated from the rest of rural life. You begin to understand how flowering depends on rainfall, how soil health affects plant diversity, how livestock management influences the surrounding ecosystem, how the way you drive machinery, how you manage land, how you treat margins and wild areas, all of it eventually reaches the bees. A modern beekeeper does not work in isolation. They become a steward of a living system. And this is exactly what the world needs more of. People who understand interdependence. People who think long-term. People who value resilience over speed. If this message feels different from what you usually hear, that is intentional. Because real beekeeping is not about shortcuts. It is about commitment. It is about showing up even when the harvest is small. It is about continuing even after losses. It is about learning when things go wrong instead of giving up. And those who walk this path seriously are never truly beginners for long. They become observers, then practitioners, then guardians. This is not just about producing honey. This is about becoming part of something that existed long before us and must continue long after us. And if you are still here, still listening, still reflecting, then perhaps this path is not as distant from you as you once thought. There is also a responsibility that comes with knowledge. Once you understand what bees need, you can no longer ignore the impact of your choices. You begin to question the use of aggressive chemicals. You begin to protect wildflowers instead of removing them. You begin to value biodiversity not as a concept but as a daily practice. This is where beekeeping becomes leadership. Not leadership over bees, but leadership by example. When neighbors see healthy colonies, strong pollination, and consistent honey quality, they start asking questions. They start paying attention. They start considering change. And slowly, without conflict, without preaching, transformation begins. This is the power of doing things correctly. A single well-managed apiary can influence an entire landscape. A single committed beekeeper can influence an entire community. And every beginner who chooses the ecological path strengthens this movement. You do not need to be perfect to start. You only need to be honest with your intention. Learn, observe, adapt, improve. That is the real cycle of sustainable agriculture. Some days you will feel confident. Other days you will feel uncertain. Both are part of the process. Because growth does not happen in comfort. It happens in attention. The bees teach this without words. They show it in their organization, their resilience, their capacity to adapt without losing balance. If you allow yourself to learn from them, they will make you better. Not only as a beekeeper, but as a person. And that is perhaps the most powerful truth of this path. Beekeeping does not just change how you work, it changes how you see the world. At some point, you stop measuring progress only in kilograms of honey. You begin to measure it in quieter ways. In the strength of your colonies after winter. In the calm behavior of your bees during inspections. In the balance you see between production and survival. This is when you understand that success in beekeeping is not about speed. It is about stability. Many people enter this world looking for quick results. But bees teach you a different logic. Slow growth, consistent care, and respect for natural rhythms always outperform impatience. A modern ecological beekeeper learns to design systems that support life instead of exhausting it. Planting flowering trees and hedgerows. Protecting water sources. Leaving space for wild nature. Reducing interventions when the colony is healthy. These choices may seem small, but together they create resilience. And resilience is the true wealth of any agricultural project. You also begin to understand that mistakes are not failures. They are information. Each loss teaches something. Each difficulty reveals what must be improved. This mindset transforms frustration into learning, and learning into long-term strength. This is why beekeeping is one of the most honest activities you can choose. It reflects your decisions clearly. You cannot hide behind marketing or excuses. The bees respond only to reality. And perhaps that is why so many people feel deeply connected to this path. Because in a world full of noise, beekeeping offers clarity. It strips things down to what truly matters: attention, responsibility, consistency, and respect. If you stay on this path, you will not only produce honey, you will produce knowledge, you will produce balance, you will produce impact. And step by step, season by season, hive by hive, you will realize that this is no longer something you are learning. It is something you are becoming. There is a quiet discipline that develops over time in every serious beekeeper. You begin to plan ahead without forcing the future. You learn to prepare without controlling. You act with intention, but you accept uncertainty. This discipline changes the way you manage everything: your schedule, your land, your resources, your expectations. You no longer chase productivity blindly. You design systems that can survive bad seasons, not only good ones. This is where modern beekeeping meets intelligent agriculture. You start asking smarter questions. How can I reduce stress on the colonies? How can I simplify my management without losing quality? How can I make my operation more efficient while remaining ethical? How can I use machinery in a way that protects soil, plants, and pollinators? The answers are never universal. They are personal. They depend on your land, your climate, your goals, your values. And that is why copying others rarely works long term. You must observe your own bees. You must study your own environment. You must build your own system. This is not weakness. This is mastery. When you reach this point, you realize something important. You are no longer following beekeeping. You are practicing it. You stop asking, "What should I do?" And you begin asking, "What are my bees telling me?" That shift changes everything. Because beekeeping is not controlled from textbooks. It is guided from presence, from consistency, from attention. And slowly, without you even noticing at first, you begin to earn something that cannot be bought: trust. Trust from your colonies. Trust from other beekeepers. Trust from clients who taste the difference. Trust from yourself. That is when this work stops feeling like an experiment and starts feeling like a path. Over time, you begin to understand that beekeeping is not a hobby you visit when you have free time. It becomes a rhythm that shapes your days, your decisions, and even your mindset. You check the weather differently. You observe flowering periods more carefully. You pay attention to subtle changes in temperature, humidity, and wind. All because somewhere in your mind, the bees are always present. This is not obsession. This is awareness. And awareness is one of the most valuable skills any farmer, beekeeper, or rural professional can develop. A modern ecological operation is built on this awareness. You start designing your land with intention. You think about access paths for tractors that avoid disturbing hives. You plan grazing areas to protect flowering zones. You preserve natural margins instead of removing them. You begin to see your property not as separate activities, but as one integrated system. Apiculture, livestock, machinery, soil, vegetation, water, everything starts to work together instead of competing. This integration is not theory. It is practical, efficient, and deeply sustainable. And the most interesting part is this: when your system becomes healthier, your workload often becomes lighter. Fewer problems, fewer emergencies, fewer interventions. Because nature, when supported instead of forced, organizes itself better than any plan. Many beginners fear that ecological approaches mean lower productivity. In reality, the opposite is often true in the long term. Healthy colonies live longer. Stable systems require fewer corrections. Strong landscapes recover faster from stress. Sustainability is not weakness. It is intelligence applied over time. If you are still here, still listening, still engaged, then you are not just watching a video. You are already thinking like someone who belongs to this world. And that is exactly the point where transformation begins. There comes a stage where you begin to understand the deeper value of continuity. Not just continuity of production, but continuity of care. You start thinking in years instead of weeks. You imagine what your apiary will look like in 5 seasons. You consider what kind of landscape you want to leave behind. Not only what you want to harvest. This long-term vision changes everything. You become more selective with your actions. You intervene less impulsively. You observe more before deciding. Because you understand that every intervention carries consequences that echo beyond the present moment. A mature beekeeper is not the one who does more. It is the one who knows when to do less. This is one of the hardest lessons to learn. And also one of the most powerful. Many beginners believe that constant manipulation leads to better results. But with time, you realize that excessive interference often creates more problems than it solves. Healthy colonies, placed in healthy environments, often require surprisingly little disturbance. This is the elegance of good beekeeping. Silent efficiency, invisible balance, consistent stability. And when you reach this understanding, something shifts again. You stop seeing bees as units of production. You begin to see them as partners in a shared system. You respect their intelligence. You admire their organization. You protect their conditions instead of forcing their behavior. This mindset does not make you weaker as a producer. It makes you stronger as a professional. Because your work becomes resilient. Your results become consistent. Your reputation becomes solid. People trust honey that comes from care. People respect practices that are honest. People recognize when something is built with integrity. That recognition does not come overnight. But when it comes, it lasts. And that is one of the most valuable things this path can offer. Not fast success, but durable credibility. If you continue walking this road, season after season, choice after choice, you will slowly realize that you are no longer trying to become a beekeeper. You already are one. There is also a quiet pride that grows with experience. Not pride in numbers, not pride in yield, but pride in craftsmanship. You begin to notice it when you open a hive and everything feels balanced. The brood is compact. The bees are calm. The frames are clean. The rhythm is healthy. That moment tells you more than any certificate ever could. This is when you realize that good beekeeping is not loud. It does not seek attention. It does not need to prove itself constantly. It simply works. And people notice. Neighbors begin to ask how you manage your colonies. Other beekeepers begin to observe your results. Consumers begin to trust your honey without needing persuasion. Because consistency speaks louder than promotion. A modern ecological beekeeper builds reputation slowly, through actions, not words. Through clean practices. Through respect for animals. Through transparency. Through patience. And that reputation becomes one of your strongest tools. You will also notice something else. Your mindset outside the apiary changes too. You become more patient in everyday life. More attentive to detail. More thoughtful before acting. More aware of cause and effect. Beekeeping does not stay in the hives. It follows you home. It follows you into your work. It follows you into your relationships. That is why many who start this path describe it as more than an activity. They describe it as a teacher. Not a teacher that speaks, but a teacher that shows. Every season shows you something. Every challenge shows you something. Every success shows you something. And slowly, without forcing it, you begin to understand one of the deepest truths of this craft. You do not master beekeeping. You grow alongside it. The bees change. The climate changes. The landscape changes. You change. The work never becomes static. It remains alive. And that is exactly why it remains meaningful. Because when something continues to teach you, when something continues to challenge you, when something continues to require your presence and your respect, it keeps you connected to reality. And in a world increasingly disconnected from natural processes, that connection is no longer just valuable. It is essential. At this stage, you begin to see the broader impact of your work. Your hives are no longer isolated units. They are part of a network that sustains the environment around you. Healthy bees pollinate local plants, which supports biodiversity. Strong colonies ensure your crops thrive without excessive chemicals. Thoughtful land management preserves soil, water, and natural habitats. Everything you do ripples outward. Your decisions affect not only your apiary but the surrounding ecosystem. This is why modern ecological beekeeping is not only a personal endeavor, it is a community responsibility. You also begin to notice how small habits accumulate over time. Regular inspections, careful record typing, and consistent maintenance create stability. Skipping steps may seem harmless, but over time small errors compound, affecting colony health and honey production. And that is the lesson that experience teaches. Discipline is more valuable than shortcuts. Observation is more important than assumptions. Respect is more impactful than control. Beekeeping also teaches emotional resilience. You experience losses, colonies that fail, seasons that underperform, unexpected weather events. But instead of discouragement, you learn to adapt. You learn to analyze, reflect, and improve. Every difficulty becomes a teacher. Every challenge strengthens your skill. Every setback reinforces your commitment to sustainable practices. When you fully embrace this perspective, your work transcends simple production. It becomes a craft, a responsibility, and a source of fulfillment. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you are committed to building a future that is ethical, sustainable, and deeply connected to nature. The journey is long, but every step strengthens both you and your colonies. And with patience, care, and observation, you will see the rewards not just in honey, but in life itself. As you continue your journey, you begin to notice patterns you never saw before. The way bees communicate through movement, the subtle shifts in hive temperature, the rhythm of nectar flow through the seasons. These details tell a story if you are willing to listen. Each inspection becomes an exercise in mindfulness. You watch the bees work and you start to understand their needs without speaking. You sense when a colony is stressed, when it is healthy, and when it is ready to expand. This awareness spills over into all aspects of farm life. You manage livestock with more empathy. You rotate crops more intelligently. And you plan machinery use more thoughtfully. Every element of your farm begins to work in harmony because you are now attuned to patterns, cycles, and connections. Beekeeping teaches you patience, but it also teaches foresight. You learn to plan months in advance, to anticipate seasonal changes, and to prepare your colonies for the unexpected. This foresight is a skill that extends beyond the apiary. It becomes part of how you approach every project in life. The beauty of modern ecological beekeeping is that it rewards observation and careful planning, not for shortcuts. When you respect the rhythm of nature, your colonies grow stronger, your honey is richer, and your work becomes more meaningful. And through it all, you begin to understand one profound truth. The best results are not measured in kilograms of honey, but in the health of your bees, the balance of your land, and the strength of the ecosystem you help sustain. Every season reinforces this lesson. Every success reminds you why you started. Every challenge teaches humility and resilience. If you are still here, listening and learning, then you are already walking the path of a responsible, modern, and ecological beekeeper. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like to continue growing with this community and to stay informed on the next steps in your journey. As the seasons pass, your perspective continues to deepen. You no longer see each hive as a separate unit, but as part of a living, interconnected system. The success of one colony depends on the health of the others, the diversity of surrounding plants, and the care you provide to the land as a whole. You notice subtle shifts in nature, early blooms, late frosts, or changes in local insect populations. These signals teach you adaptability, patience, and humility. You learn to act deliberately rather than react impulsively. Every decision is informed by observation, experience, and respect for life. At this stage, you also begin to understand the intangible rewards, the quiet moments in the apiary, the gentle hum of healthy bees, the satisfaction of seeing colonies thrive under your care. These are the true markers of progress. The honey you harvest is no longer merely a product. It is the result of harmony between human effort and natural processes. And now, as we approach the end of this talk, it is time to reflect. The journey of a beekeeper is ongoing, filled with lessons, surprises, and growth. What began as curiosity evolves into responsibility, awareness, and connection. You have learned that modern ecological beekeeping is not only a method, it is a way of life. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you are ready to embrace this path. And stay tuned for future sessions where we will explore each aspect of beekeeping in more detail. The story does not end here, it continues in every hive, every season, and in every beekeeper willing to walk this path with care and dedication. As you step back and observe your apiary, you begin to see the bigger picture. Every hive, every colony, every flower, every tool, and every decision contributes to a delicate balance. Beekeeping is no longer a series of tasks, it becomes a philosophy. You notice how even small actions make a difference. Planting a few extra flowering plants increases nectar diversity. Leaving hedgerows intact provides shelter and habitat. Minimizing chemical use strengthens colonies and the surrounding ecosystem. These choices, repeated season after season, create resilience that lasts far beyond a single harvest. The lessons learned here extend beyond the apiary. Patience, observation, responsibility, and care become part of your daily life. You approach challenges with a calmer mind and a longer view. You understand that every decision has consequences, and that respect for life brings lasting rewards. And now, as this session comes to a close, remember this: the journey of a beekeeper is never truly finished. It is continuous, evolving with every season, every observation, and every choice you make. What matters most is the commitment to act thoughtfully, sustainably, and ethically. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you want to continue learning, exploring, and growing as a modern ecological beekeeper. This is not the end, it is simply the beginning of a lifelong path filled with discovery, care, and connection to the natural world. Your journey has only just started, and every step you take will shape the future of your apiary and the life around it. As we draw this session to its conclusion, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for joining me here today. Your presence, your attention, and your willingness to learn mean more than you might realize. Beekeeping is a path that requires dedication, patience, and care, and taking the time to understand is the first step toward truly meaningful practice. We hope that this session has been useful for you. Whether you are a complete beginner or already have some experience, the principles we discussed today — observation, ecological respect, ethical practices, and careful planning — are essential foundations for any beekeeper. The journey does not end here. There is so much more to explore, and we are committed to providing many more sessions, each focused on a different aspect of beekeeping. In upcoming talks, you will learn in detail about selecting and managing the right type of hives for your environment, understanding and caring for different bee breeds, choosing and using the correct protective clothing and equipment, efficient and sustainable honey extraction and storage, legal requirements and best practices for a safe and compliant apiary, seasonal strategies to maximize both colony health and productivity. Each session will build on the knowledge you gained today, providing practical, professional, and ecologically sound guidance. We want you to feel confident in every step you take in your beekeeping journey. Remember, modern ecological beekeeping is about more than honey. It is about building a connection with nature, a relationship with your land, and a deep understanding of life itself. Every decision you make as a beekeeper resonates beyond the hive. It affects the environment, the community, and the future of the craft. So as we close this talk, I encourage you to reflect on what you've learned today. Think about your own apiary, your own land, and the ways you can apply these principles to make a positive impact. Small, thoughtful actions create long-term change. Respect, patience, observation, and care are the most powerful tools you will ever have. And above all, remember that you are not alone on this journey. This community of beekeepers, learners, and nature enthusiasts is here to support you. By staying engaged, asking questions, and participating in future sessions, you will continue to grow your knowledge and skills. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like so that you don't miss our upcoming P1 NCIs, which will explore every aspect of beekeeping in even greater detail. From hive management to advanced seasonal strategies, from ecological practices to legislation and safety, we will guide you step by step. Thank you again for accompanying us today. Your curiosity, commitment, and passion for learning are what make this work meaningful. We hope you found this session insightful, inspiring, and practical. Remember, the path of a beekeeper is long and evolving. It is filled with discovery, growth, and connection. And while today is the end of this particular session, it is only the beginning of a much larger journey. Stay tuned for our future P1NCIs. We will continue to explore, teach, and share everything you need to know to become a confident, responsible, and modern ecological beekeeper. Together, we can nurture not only our bees, but our land, our communities, and the next generation of beekeepers. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for committing to this path. We look forward to seeing you again in our next session. Until then, observe, care, and continue building your connection with the natural world. The journey has only just begun, and your role as a guardian of nature is already underway. Let's walk this path together, one hive at a time. Thank you, and see you soon in our next P1 Chia.